Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. I've got a fabulous guest with us this morning, Ash Burleigh. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really, really good. The sun's out, so I'm happy, which makes a nice change where I live.
I was going to say, well, I live in Yorkshire, so it's rare. We haven't really, actually, we do. Yeah. We had glorious sunshine yesterday. So yeah, thanks for joining us. I tell you what's interesting to have you on, Ash, is the fact that most of my guests tend to be geared around gyms, fitness clubs, that sort of thing. And your expertise is in the PT and the online PT training. So it's great to have you on to talk about that because I think it's something that's growing exponentially at the moment. So really good timing. Before we jump into that, do you want to give everybody just a quick run through of who Ash is, what you've done in the past, and sort of what PTD Ninja is? Sorry, I can't say
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, a lot of tongue twisters in there.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always quite an interesting story, really, because my background's not actually in fitness
Was he
originally.
not? Oh,
It was in coaching, but not in fitness. So I used to coach in adventure. So I used to take people like rock climbing, kayaking, that kind of thing.
oh wow.
And that's the sort of thing I did for years. I started doing that when I was kind of 16. Then when I became 18, got qualified in it to do it and did that for a few years. And very quickly, I decided instead of working for people, because I've always kind of been self-employed. It's a self-employed gig, a bit like being a PT, really. And I got to maybe like 19, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be working for people anymore. And went to go and set my own business up doing exactly the same thing.
Took me
Um,
35 years to realise that.
yeah, I was quite lucky though. My family own a business, and they have done. So I
Oh,
grew up
okay.
in business. I always say to people, I knew what cash flow was before I knew algebra was. So like I'm very fortunate with that. So it was always kind of there. Like the idea of saying I want to go and start a business wasn't an alien concept to me at all.
Yeah.
I was so used to it from my parents. And then it's a completely different industry. It's manufacturing. It's like miles different to
But it
what
still
else.
gives you that mindset, doesn't it, that you don't have to work for someone else to earn money.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And so very quickly I did that, and they're obviously very supportive. And I always say to people, like some people have a difficult time getting started, raising funds to do it, but I was very fortunate. My parents at such a young age said, "Yeah, we'll do it," and they wanted to invest in it, and that's what my dad did. Decided to invest in the business, and we started doing a venture-based work, and we worked with local authorities. So we used to tackle
Oh
things
wow.
like antisocial behaviour and things like that using like a mobile climbing wall that we had, and we did a sport called slacklining, which is kind of like a balanced sport. We did a lot of fitness stuff as well. So we used to go to like leisure centres and do work with them to help improve their fitness. So we had a team of people
Oh,
from
cool.
personal trainers to venture coaches. So it's quite a varied business to be
Yeah,
honest with you,
yeah.
all around coaching. The problem was it was all funded by government funding. Uh,
Ah,
my
gotcha.
mistake. Yeah, these days, like I look at things a little bit different. You learn from your mistakes, don't you? And people say, "Oh, like things are changing," and then recessions start to hit, and a lot of the funding around Play England, for example, in Sport England, that was focused around what we was doing was pulled, so the money just wasn't there anymore. So we actually wound up that side of the business, and then we set up a slightly different type of business, which was in fitness because it was an interesting thing that I had an interest in. And that came about because, as I kind of mentioned earlier, my dad was a business owner, or still is, but he was extremely overweight. He's like, he was 6'4", he was like 26, 27 stone, something like
Bloody
that.
hell, well.
And he got diagnosed with angina. And obviously, I had an interest in fitness and I was doing like some PT and stuff, did my PT quals as well. And he's like, "Can you help?" So I thought, "Oh, yeah, sure." So I started working with him, and I realized I actually really like doing that kind of thing. And me being me, thinking I'm not going to go and work in the gym or pay rent there. I'll just go and buy a studio.
Oh
So
wow.
that's what we did. I teamed up with one of my best friends at the time, who was also a PT, who we obviously used to work with, and we got our first studio. We then got into two studios relatively quickly. And yeah, we did that for a while, and then that's kind of where I found online. Like very quickly, we went into group coaching because we knew it's more scalable, and we
Yeah.
started adding kind of online stuff, like a hybrid approach on top of that. So the nutrition and things like that was done on the online side, which is what I'm mainly focused on, and my business partner focused on the actual training, and we did that for quite a while. I realized very quickly that I quite like this online stuff. It's pretty decent. Like I don't have to work as much when I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I moved out of that business and then focused on the online side of it and did that. And that's kind of where I came across the Peter Distinction software, which I think most people who, if they listen to this and have seen me before, will probably put my name towards Peter Distinction. And it's a coaching software. So I found this coaching software and I was like, oh, like this is cool. Like this is going to really help me because I was using like Google Sheets and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
absolutely.
which was all right, but it's, takes
It's
time.
hard work, isn't it? Though it's you want something that just takes a lot of that paying away.
Yeah, definitely. And it really helped do that. It's very early days. I mean, this software hadn't been around at the time, which I didn't know around 6, 7 months. It only been around a short period of time. But I thought I'll go for it because there wasn't many around. This was way before online training was even really a thing. And so I got involved with that, started doing that. And then this is how long ago it was. Facebook came up with Facebook groups. So
Oh
before
wow.
Facebook groups didn't even exist. So Facebook came up with Facebook groups. Peter Distinction set up a Facebook group for it. And I was still a user of Peter Distinction at this point, and got invited into it. So we got pulled into the group and people asking questions as you do. And I guess like all coaches, you want to help out, don't you? So you just answer things. And I was like, oh, this is new. So I'll start talking about this. And I kept saying, well, you could do this with the software. You could do that with the software. Or have you thought about doing this with your business or that with your business? Just help. Just no, nothing for it. Just thought I'd help. And at one point, I answered the question. And the owner of Peter Distinction, one of the owners, Tim, sent by two brothers, went, I didn't even know you could do that with our software. Like, I was completely unaware
Wow.
that you could do it because it's such a flexible software, and that's kind of how our conversation started. And basically, at the back of that, we started teaming up, and I started doing bits of work for them, and I got more and more involved. We did master classes first for it. We had about 3 or 4 of those. A lot of people just said, "Oh, can you just do it for us? Can you build
Yeah,
it all
yeah.
out and set
That's
things
what I
up?"
get a lot as a consultant. Yeah, yeah, but why don't you just do it, Ryan?
Like,
Because you'd be paid about 70 grand a year if
yeah.
if you want me to come in and do it.
Yeah, exactly. It adds up. There's a big difference in price there. But that's kind of how the done for you stuff started. And we started doing done for you stuff mainly for PT Distinction. But the beauty about it was a lot of the things we did was, let's say if you was a coach or a trainer, you wanted to go online, and you already had a business or you wanted to systemize your business or whatever, they come to us and say, oh, Ash, this is what I want to do. And I was like, okay, can you make it work? I was like, yeah, I can make it work. I didn't really give too much advice at that point on whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. It's just like, I'll
Yeah,
just
yeah.
make it work for you. So we built it out. And we did that for years and years. And the interesting thing was we started seeing a pattern in the successful businesses versus the ones that weren't. So we saw patterns in the people that were running it, the day-to-day things they had, the systems and approaches they had. And these patterns were so similar. So we
I
thought,
know.
well, I know, why don't we just take these patterns and create a course around it? So we built this course around it. That originally started off with just like it was like a 101 type course for
Yeah.
PT Distinction. And over time, we got more data and more data around running businesses online, like how to market, how to sell it, how to coach people online.
That must be the great thing, actually having access to all that data, because you can just see it all coming in and going, actually, we can use that, we can use that. This was really, really
Mhm.
important. And those clubs that have done well, like you say, you're getting all these ideas in and building it. You can go, well, we'll just build that into the program. Happy
Exactly.
days, everyone can have it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we did. And at the back of that, we eventually created the online personal training certification, which is what it kind of is now today. So that's the main thing we offer. We offer like an academy that goes with it that supports them and things like that. But the main bread and butter of that is this certification. So like anyone can come in, and any trainer that wants to become an online trainer, they can come along and we'll go for everything from the business side of it, the marketing side of it, how to build those systems out from start to finish, what system works generally best for most people that you can adapt and adjust, all the fundamentals. And then we talk about actually transferring your in-person skills online. Like, how does that translate? How's that different?
I was going to ask you that question because obviously you've been through it and you've jumped from in person to online. How big is the mindset change to doing that? Because obviously I've been a PT, I've done all that, and I really enjoyed the one to one and physically training people, getting the kit out, dragging it out of the car, going out of the park, all that sort of stuff. But I can imagine it's a whole new mindset to training someone online because you don't have that one to one to say, right, this is where we need to go, this is how hard you need to work. It's motivationally very different between you and the client.
Yeah, it's
So
much.
how different is that mindset shift?
It's quite big. I think there's a couple of things you need to think about when you do it. The first thing, I think I take it right back when you're first making that move online. The most important thing to remember is you're not actually a personal trainer anymore. In fact, you're not even an online personal trainer. What you actually are is a business owner that delivers online personal training. And that's the first shift you need to make because I think if you go from maybe working in the gym or you're paying rent in a gym or whatever, a lot of the times that when you do that, you're in the gym and the gym itself is doing quite a lot of the work in terms of a marketing perspective. They're
Yeah,
bringing an
absolutely.
audience in for you for not trying to simplify the process, but all you've really got to do is just get up off your backside and go and be nice to people and speak to people, and you'll probably get some sales. But that's one small part of business, that kind of engagement part of it,
Yeah.
and trying to nurture those leads and get a sale. Bringing them in is different, and then doing all the back end stuff other than just paying rent out is completely different. And I think that's the first shift that most people need to make if they're thinking they're going online. You've got to start thinking a bit more entrepreneurially around how you want to go and approach things. The other shift you need to make is coaching. So to me, there's a difference between training somebody and coaching somebody. And I always try and say, as much as I call it online personal training, one of the first things I say to people is actually you're not, you're an online coach. That's the
Oh no,
difference.
absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's the biggest mindset. You need to become more of a coach. And you can't rely on things like you mentioned motivation there, for example. Motivation is okay, but it's very fickle. At the end of the day, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning, you're not going to go and do the things you do. That's why I think like New Year's resolutions, for example, they don't work so well because they're driven by the motivation of New Year's, and before you know it, that motivation's gone, and
Oh,
then you
absolutely.
can't rely on it. And that's where I think a coaching approach helps. You start understanding the real reasons why people do stuff, and then you can start looking at structuring your programs in a different way
I
so
guess you
that
can be
it doesn't
quite
rely on it.
lazy in person as well, can't you?
Yeah.
In the sense that if you've got a strong personality, that can actually drive your success.
Mm.
Where
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to do that online. Yes, you can do videos and stuff like that to show who you are, but it's a lot harder to have that really close relationship when
Mhm.
you're not with someone all the time. So you can't get away with as much, I can
No.
imagine, online. You've really got to deliver what you say you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
Because I can remember doing some PTs and you just turn up, not even planned, and go,
hmm
right, this is what we're doing today. Can't really do that
No,
online.
you can't do
That's
that
the thing.
online. I mean, there was a period of time where everyone did like Zoom calls and things like that, like Zoom sessions. But that's not really online training. Like, if you're just going to do sessions through Zoom and you're just basically doing the same thing you do in person, you're not really getting the benefits that online training can bring. But I think you have to kind of have a curriculum. You have to start really thinking a bit more niche, not just because from a marketing perspective, the more niche you can make something, easier it is, but from a delivery perspective. Because if you're niche, or you'll start niching down, you'll find that people generally start from the same place because you've attracted them in and they want the same goals and they want to end in the same place. And they generally have the
Yeah.
same kind of issues. So what you can do is create a curriculum within your program, and that curriculum becomes like the backbone of your program, and then you build your deliverables around that. And it's just making sure that once you built those deliverables in there, that you do it in a way that is progressive, like a curriculum
Yeah.
would be, but you also have a way to hold them accountable in there. So ways that can kind of I call micro check-ins or micro touch points. So it's always like you're there all the time, but it's simple enough for them to do. So they can just take these little micro touch points and eventually work their way through this curriculum. And we actually see this all the time. Like if you go back to when you was at school, it's exactly the same principle. You have a certain age, you got
Yeah.
a certain curriculum to work through. You probably get organized into different classes. You know, you had sets. I think you had like
Yeah.
sets
Yeah.
in
It
different
is, yeah.
classes. It's exactly the same principle. And I always say to people, like, try and get a niche because that niche is effective that set. It's that class and that curriculum that you're trying to work through. And the more niches you have, the more varied that has, the more of those you need in order to be successful online. It's not saying you can't do that, but it's just easier to start off with one and then work your way through there. And then maybe you can start expanding the range of what you do a little bit later on.
I guess the good thing about that is as well is because obviously we were talking before we came online. In terms of the marketing, it's so much harder now to get people engaged.
Mhm.
If you're pretty much saying I'm all for everybody,
Mhm.
it's very hard then to attract those individuals that
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Yeah.
Whereas you can almost do that in a gym because you're
Mhm.
picking someone up who wants PT and then you just work with whatever their goals are.
Yeah.
Whereas online, you've got to attract that person to you.
Mhm.
And what you don't want to be doing is going, right, I do all of these things, pick
Mhm.
and choose which you want. It just makes it really hard for if you're doing ads or
Mhm.
even just your normal organic stuff.
Mhm.
You want to be able to reach that type of person you want rather than anybody. Um,
Yeah. Exactly. You kind of hit the nail of it, like choosing all these different options. I mean, if you actually think about that as a concept, so like the more options you have, the more you, when you're marketing, you have to think, who am I speaking to? Like the
yeah.
way you would speak to someone that say a woman going through the menopause compared to an 18-year-old male athlete from the States, completely different language, completely different things. And the only thing you can do is become vague. And when you become vague, you're then competing against big big corporations who are also quite vague in what they do, who spend literally hundreds of thousands, if not more, sometimes a month on both organic and paid advertising. Like you've got to try and compete with that. And whichever way you look at it, and we talked about ads a little bit earlier on, like it's a bidding game. It's a bidding game. The
Oh,
more you
absolutely.
pay, the better results you're going to get. That's literally what it comes down to. And you're not going to be able to compete with that. Well, most people, I'm guessing, listening to this won't be able to compete at that level. The more niche you become, there's less people bidding in that area, for want of a better word. So it's easier for you to go and stand out. And it also means you can find the places where your ideal client, the people who fall within that niche, where they hang out. And once you understand where they hang out, the rest of it's kind of easy. And that's exactly what happens when you're repeating the gym because you're going to work in the gym. Like people think you're paying rent in the gym to go and use the equipment. You are, but you're also paying for the fact you've now got a pool of people who you know are interested in getting fitter, healthy, whatever.
Yeah.
And because you've got access now to go and speak to them, you can just get up and speak to them. And when you speak to them and have conversations, you can find out what their actual goals and things are, and then you can decide whether you want to help them or not. You can't really do that online. You have to somehow get to those people first, then have those conversations. And the only way you're having those conversations, whether that's through messaging or whether that's through your advertising, your content, or anything like that, you need to understand who they are in order to go and do that. Um, and
I guess the great
that's
thing
what's
with it
important.
is, though, because it is online, it also expands your market quite considerably. So you
Mm,
go into a gym, you've got 1,000 members you're playing with. I don't know, maximum 20% of those
mm,
will be interested in PT. So you've got 200 people to go after. Whereas if you go online and you get it right,
mhm.
you potentially got 8 billion.
Yeah,
If
literally,
you look at
so
it,
many people you can
yeah,
pick from.
exactly. And you were talking about like an 18-year-old in the States. Now,
Mm,
most personal trainers working in the UK won't even consider Europe, America,
mhm,
Australia. I have a friend, and he started it. He's moved on to other things, but he started, and he had people from Japan,
mm,
and you're sort of going, wow, that that suddenly opens up this market so considerably,
mm,
and that's the I guess that's the opportunities and why
mm,
so many people are looking at people like you to go, right, help me get online,
mhm.
because that's and like you say, they don't have to go to work. But I think the growth opportunities are so much more significant.
Mhm. Yeah, they are. They're so much more significant if you approach it right.
Yeah.
And again, you have that niche market that you want to go into because you're not limited geographically. That doesn't mean to say that because you go online, I think it's a big mistake a lot of trainers do make. They go online so they try and aim for the whole world straight away. I always
Yeah.
say to people, when you're starting out, your next door neighbor could be your next online client. And I think that's an important thing. If anyone's thinking of going online to take anything away from this, I would take that away that they can be your next door neighbor. And yes, you're an online trainer, but what you're doing, like I mentioned earlier, you're an online, you're a business person that offers online personal training as a service. That online personal training as a service is the important thing. It's your service that is online. Everything else doesn't have to be. So, for example, we talked about going to, like in marketing, you can go and market to places where they hang out. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm an online trainer. I'm going to do targeted ads to a particular type of demographic, or I'm going to go to Facebook groups, or I'm going to go to accounts, or I'm going to go to forums or whatever. That's fine. But you can also go to networking events. You can also
Yeah.
go to shopping centers. You can also go to cinemas. You can also go to coffee shops. You can also go to all these different things. Like there's no just because it's online doesn't mean you have to go and sell it online. And if you look at some of the biggest names out there in the online industry, like Joe Wicks, for example, you see the odd things for him, but he does so much outside of his actual online stuff. Most of his
Well,
services
if
are
you
sold
think
for other
about it,
things.
he's not a chef.
No
Yeah, he's known for his
recipes.
recipe books and
Yeah.
stuff like, which is amazing because you sort of go, well, actually, he's done that. Yes, he's sold millions of books
Mm,
or hundreds of thousands of books or whatever it was. But I can imagine when he set out, that actually probably went, well, I'm an online coach. This is what I do.
mhm.
I'm going to use those as a way of driving leads into my business.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that is the case, but I can imagine that was the thought
yeah.
process. And obviously, the books took off, and
Hmm.
he's made millions of pounds off the back of it. So well done
Mm,
to him. But
yeah,
that's not his actual business. His
no,
actual business is a coach. He's
yeah.
and people forget that.
And I think that's the important thing to remember about this kind of thing. Like, just because what you see at that front end is especially with very successful businesses, is not quite what's actually happening. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes, a lot of things that you get led into as well. And it's just important to remember that what you do on that front end, where you target people and how you target them's important to think about. And just remember, it's the service that you offer that's online, not necessarily everything else. So if you
And
struggle with
just out
certain
of
things,
just out of interest, because a lot of people look at it, they're going, well, we're going to go online. I need to be an influencer. I need to be Joe Swoll. I
yeah,
need to be, you know what I mean? And I can imagine that's clearly not the case. But
no.
do you find a lot of them come to you and that's their focus? Like, I've got to build my personal brand. I've
Mhm.
got to give it all that. And you go, actually, this is what you need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I'd probably say 90% of the time that's the case. I think there's a big misconception that you have to have a big following or you have to be an influencer online. The first thing I say about influencing, that's a different thing to being an online coach. I know a lot of influencers, and I know a lot of them don't make a lot of money compared to what they actually say they might make or what
Yeah,
it
yeah.
looks like they might make. And just because you have a big account doesn't always translate into sales. I can remember years and years ago, we did a done for you project for PT Distinction. And he came along to us and he had, well, way over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And he was
Wow.
like, I'm just going to go and convert these. I want to go and do this program. I want to go online. He was actually originally, he was a PT, but he supplemented his work most of the time doing train driving for the London Underground. So he was doing all
Okay.
right in wages and things like that. And just did kind of PT on the side. He goes, I can monetize this. And I was like, okay then. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, this is the program. And they had lots of different options and things. I was like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, we'll help you do that. And this was before we started giving advice. This was kind of the days where we hadn't built the course or anything out yet. So it was the very early
Yeah, yeah.
days of the Done For You service. And I can remember doing it and he hardly made any, well, he didn't make any sales because his audience was very different to what his program was and what he wanted to
Yeah.
deliver. And his audience came there because they wanted to see him with his top off, not because they wanted to see him be coached. So there was
I can
nothing.
imagine that's like this thing. I love watching Joe Swole stuff.
Mm.
You know what I mean. He calls people out, but I can't imagine there's a huge number of those people that like his videos that are buying his online PT product.
Yeah.
And he's got
I
4 million followers, and obviously he does very well. I'm sure off his TikTok and whatever he
mm.
makes money out of that. But I can't imagine he gets a huge amount of conversion from those into his.
Probably not. It's probably lower than what you think. I mean, it all depends how you build your audience up. It really does depend how you build your audience up. But a lot of building your audience up from an influencer perspective or having a bigger audience does take time to build up, and there's no guarantee that it's going to go and convert. There's other things you can do with your time that's much more effective at converting them into paying clients. And I think that, and it's a big question I always ask anyone that comes to join is like, what do you actually want to be? Do you want to be an influencer for a big account and then try and sell off the back of that, or do you want to make money for your business? And that's always the first question I ask because this making money for your business is a lot easier than becoming an influencer because that influencer account and people seeing your content and all that kind of stuff. Yes, there's things you can do, but there's also an element of luck there, and it's controlled by algorithms that you have zero control about.
Yeah,
Absolutely zero. You can't control what Facebook,
it's
Instagram are going to do.
dangerous, isn't it?
It's a dangerous
To
game to
rely.
play,
Yeah, yeah, it is
and
dangerous.
hope's not a strategy for me in business. So to me, I always say, let's focus on actually getting the business going first. Let's focus on doing that. Still do your content stuff, like do that fine because it's only going to help, but let that be a byproduct of you doing a good job over here. And think about what you actually want this business for. And I think that's the key thing for anybody that goes into business. A lot of people kind of, I think PTs especially, they get kind of forced into business. A lot of people get qualified, then they get told, "Oh, you need to be self-employed." You go, "Hey, do I? I'm not going to get a job." I'm like, "No, all these, especially during that time where you can probably remember
I
this."
think the industry. I mean, you've been around a long time, Ash,
Mm,
like I have, and I when I joined, it was the day you went in as a gym instructor,
mm,
and then you earned the right to be a personal trainer,
mm.
but you were still internal. Now they get qualified, and it's right. It's self-employed. No,
Yeah,
nobody's hiring paid PTs, and
no,
I mean it's rare these days, and I
yeah,
think it's a real shame for the industry.
yeah,
If I'm honest, it's why the industry or fitness industry's got really low level
mm,
of really good club managers
yeah,
because you used to go obviously gym instructor, PT, duty manager, or sales
mm,
system manager and up,
mm.
but that line gets cut off the moment you have freelancers.
Yeah. You get freelancers and that career progression, if you like, within the business is gone, isn't it? And you just
Yeah,
don't get it. So you either go and work in a gym and then work up that progression. So you might work on reception, for example, or in HR or admin or something like that, or you become a PT.
yeah, yeah,
And it's like it's gone down two routes. And I think that's led to some of the issues with the online side of it. Because I think you kind of get forced into being self-employed. So you start thinking, well, I've got to kind of run a business here. And then it's hard. I mean, running a business is not easy at all. And then you think, I'm going to go online because I'm seeing lots of things advertised about how I can make 10K a month working from a beach and all that kind of stuff.
I'll come on to that in a minute because
Yeah, go to
I've
that
seen
in a
some
bit.
funny.
And you kind of get forced into it and think I'll do it, but then online you're like, actually, no, really, like, I've got to run a business here. You have to approach it like a business. And I think because people are forced into it, they don't actually really think about what they're in business for. And to me, business is just a tool to help you achieve the things you want in life. And you have the ability or the power, if you like, when you have your own business to mold it however you want. I mean, obviously there's some regulations and things like that you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
abide by, but you generally speaking have the autonomy or the power to do what you want with it. And if you can't design a business that helps you achieve the things you want in life, or at least work towards that, then I question why bother do it in the first place. Because
yeah.
it's a
Just
lot of
go get a
stress and
job.
hassle.
Yeah. Well, the thing, what makes me laugh is when you hear people go, "Well, I'm gonna work for myself because then I'll have flexibility in my hours. I'll have," and you're just like, you are kidding yourself.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
I've worked for
happening.
myself since 2014, and
Mm,
trust me, I have very few weeks that aren't over 50, 60 hours. And you're like
mm,
going, I enjoy what I do, and that's why I do it. And like
yeah,
you, I'll never work for anyone else.
no.
I had an entrepreneurial mum. She had her own estate agent, so a bit like you in that story.
Mm,
So I was used to seeing it. But I was just like, I can't work for somebody else. So whatever happens, I'm working the hours, I'm working what I need to do,
mm.
so I have the money. But a lot of people don't actually realize that self-employed is a lot harder than a job and turning up 9 to 5 and taking your what salary home.
Yeah, it's a big difference, a very big difference. Like even just little things like I know we don't really talk about that, but little things like okay, where's your sick pay gone? Where's your holiday pay gone? How do you manage your cash flow properly? Like most people probably will never learn about cash flow. And it's just understanding those kind of things that you have to start learning more when you become self-employed or if you then become a limited company and you want to do stuff with that as well, like you have to start thinking in a different way and approaching things in a very different way. And it's very different to being employed. And you're exactly right. Like most business owners I know work 2, 3 times the amount of hours employed people do for probably about half the amount of money that employed people do.
Well, I bet there's a large proportion, and I wouldn't be able to put a stat on it,
Mm.
but with the hours that self-employed people work, I bet most of them are getting paid below the minimum
Yeah,
wage.
I'd imagine most of them are, and I think that generally happens for most businesses when they first start out. Um, but that's again why I think it's important to think what you're doing it for,
Yeah, yeah,
because when you understand what you're doing it for, you can start setting a plan. So yeah, you're going to go through a period of time where you're probably not getting paid a lot, and you're doing a lot of hours, but the aim is you've got a goal to get to. And I think again that's where like freelance PT struggle sometimes. Their goal is like, okay, I've got to get trainers and climbers now, and then you do like 60 hours a week, but you've got no time to think where am I going to progress to. Probably
yeah,
the biggest thing we see. I want to go online because Ash, I've got no time and I can't make any more money than what I'm doing, but I need to look about my future. Like I can't keep doing 60 hours a week at this wages and then have kids and then retire and then all that kind of stuff. And that's what we try and fix for them. We know when they come to us and they want to go online, we look at how we can build a business around what they actually want. And I think that's that issue. If you understand what you want your business for, you can then start planning and start thinking
yeah,
about where this is actually going to go to. And then hopefully, if you do all the right, do a lot of the right things, you'll get to a point where you start to make more and you start to have a more autonomy over your time. I like the word autonomy over flexibility because autonomy means you get to choose about what you're going to do with
yeah.
your
No, no,
time.
it's a very
But
good
there's
point.
also consequences for all those choices that you make, good or bad. You can choose not to do a particular thing, but it might cost you a lead, or it might cost you a sale, or it might cost you reputation. So there's always a consequence for every decision that you make in your business. But at least you
Absolutely.
have autonomy over it.
So here's an, we'll go back to this 10K a week
Mm,
scenario because I can remember doing a post a few months ago, it might be 6 months ago,
mm,
and I saw an advert and the guy was like, "Work with me. If you're not earning £10,000 a week,
mm.
you're doing it wrong." And I was like, "How?" I don't know how many people, well, certainly personal trainers that are earning £500,000 a year.
No, I
I
don't.
mean, that's
I don't know
half a
any.
million. I mean, I don't know many earning 100K.
No.
I mean, clearly there are,
Mm,
but there's not that many that earn that sort of money. And you sort of going, how can you blatantly lie so much?
mm,
Or you've got one client that's earning that and you're living off the back of it. But I was just like, I mean, what? You can't go in with that expectation, surely. I mean, surely people. I mean, I've never seen you obviously do those sorts of ads, and I'll never do them. It's like when I work with clubs, I don't go in and say, right, I'm going to move your revenue from 20K a month to 50K a month,
mm,
because there's no guarantee. Every club's different, every business is different,
mm,
every individual you're working with is different.
mhm,
I can guarantee. Well, I try and guarantee results. Now
mhm.
that may be a 5% increase, 20%, 100%. You know what I mean? But I can't guarantee any of that.
No.
So I find it really strange how you get these coaches that, and probably they've never done it themselves either. Because if they're
No.
earning £500,000, what are they selling coaching
Yeah,
programs on?
exactly. I think I posted something about this random not too long ago actually, and to me, I think the first thing you need to look at is how do they know you need that in the first place? Like, regardless of whether you're saying you're not earning this, like, I don't know when I speak to somebody how much money you need. Kind of like I said earlier, business is a tool to help you achieve a certain thing, but so's money and so's time. On their own, I could put like £1 million in cash on a table in front of you. It means absolutely nothing unless you do something with it. Otherwise,
Yeah,
just bits of paper on there. So the money that you earn is just a tool to help you do stuff. And I think sometimes in business you can go, yeah, you could earn 10K a week if you wanted to. You might have to hustle, like ridiculously hustle consistently to maybe do that. But then I question, well, how sustainable is that going to be? And
Yeah,
there are all these kind of things you have to look at. Is one, do you need that in order to achieve the things you want to achieve? Because if you can understand like what your actual goals are, once you understand your goals, you can then set targets for those goals. And those targets are normally monetary and time wise. Once you've
yep,
got those targets in place, you can then set the systems to support those targets. And then once you've got those systems to support those targets, you can build habits to support those systems. And that basic structure is what every business really should be doing. And funny enough, that basic structure is exactly what a good coach and PT does with their clients. Set
yeah,
goals, sets targets, builds systems, which is workout, nutrition, or whatever, and then helps them build habits to maintain those systems. It's no different. And I think that's the first thing to do is understand, like, do you actually need that in the first place? Now, the other thing I find really annoying about this, and I think this is a big issue in the industry, and I think this has come because a lot of business coaches are normally ex-PTs who have gone online or especially from an online perspective anyway, have gone online or done very well in whatever business they're doing. And they're basically like, they're more like mentors, just saying, just do as I
yeah,
did and this kind of maybe worked for me and whatever. Now, mentorship is basically you're following someone else's path. It's not coaching. It's like just go and do what I did. The basic principle of do what I did doesn't generally work for a lot of people. Like we know this from a fat loss perspective. Like every
yeah,
person can say, just do follow the program I did and you'll lose weight. I was like, yeah, maybe a small percentage will, but majority of people won't. Like you, because you have to adapt it to go and suit that individual. Just like you said a minute ago, I don't know who they are, what they like, what the big goals. Like you need to know all that kind of stuff in order to do it effectively. And I think that's half the problem with it. But the other side of it is they're advertising in the same way they would probably advertise as a PT or online coach. So if you go out there and you see it everywhere all the time, like lose 20K in 10 days or something
yeah,
ridiculous
yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
Those adverts everywhere. And from a PT perspective, I know most PTs probably listen to this thing, I hate that. It does made me because that's not really the case. But you also know deep down in reality you can do it. Just don't eat. You'll probably lose like
Yeah,
20K. It's not sustainable, but you can do it. So what happens is in the fat loss market, the weight loss market, is we see all these ads, all this marketing that's been out there. It's been like that for years now, well, decades now, and people are paying for it. And let's say for every 100 people that see that advertising, five of them might click the ad, and then three of them might go through and sign up to that program, and one of them might get a result and then maybe continue on to the back end. So, like I said earlier, there's always a back end thing. They're trying to
yeah,
bring them through the door and then sell them into something else after, which is probably more sustainable. So, for every 100 people that see it, 95 of them are now expecting that's the standard because that's all the ads I'm seeing. So that's why when PTs now are speaking to people like, well, this person's losing this program allows me to do this. And that's why we have that battle of the PT. Now that's started to translate into the business coaching and mentorship world from especially for online. And you're seeing these kind of these things at the front end. And again, 100 people are seeing it, five are signing up to it, and so on. And the same thing's happening. The expectation is now becoming this: like, if I'm not doing 10K month's the perfect example. If I'm not doing 10K a month, I'm a failure. That's what's being felt now. Like, or I have to go and have this 10K. But you need to ask yourself, why do you need that in the first place? And I promise you, you're not a failure. Like most people we work with, yeah, we have people that do like we've got maybe a handful of clients over the past 8 years that are doing over 100,000 a year, but it's a 100,000 a month, sorry, which is a very, very different business.
wow.
And if you speak to them, they're not coaches, they are business owners, and it's that the costs that go out like 100,000 a month turnover sounds amazing, but they're paying 60 grand a month in staff wages, advertising, like, and they're
Yeah,
still
my
paying that whether
girlfriend.
they sell or not.
Yeah, my girlfriend works for a business coach. He works with sort of six-figure salary people getting them back
Mm,
into work, that sort of stuff. But their revenue is probably 60, 70 grand a month. But
mm,
the cost, I mean, when she tells me, it's just like, my Lord. And so the profit at the end of it actually isn't
no,
the 60K. You might look at the 60K and go, that's a lot of business. But actually the amount of money that goes out the back end is considerable,
yeah,
considerable.
and
So
that
it's yeah,
yeah, that's
how
why
much they're
profit
taking
matters.
home is different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why profit matters. And again, it's looking at these things like what are your profit margins in your business? It's such an important thing to understand because I think it was, I'm sure it was it Alan Sugar that said it once? I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, or like I'm sure somebody will do, but I'm sure they said like turnover is vanity, profit is sanity.
Oh, I've
And I
heard
think,
that. Yeah, I don't know who
yeah, I'm
said
sure
it.
it was him that said it. But it's such a true thing. Like profit's what matters because that's what goes in the bank at the end of the day after all said and done. And that's what decides whether your business is profitable and going to actually survive or not. It's the profit and stuff that you have in there. And I think a lot of these programs don't really, a lot of people when they go into it, they don't market it in that way. They market on the turnover, they market on all those different things they're doing. But the majority of people we work with, they do like 6,000 a month online, and that's about it. But they don't have like, they might have a VA, very small outgoings, but their
A pretty
overheads are so low.
reasonable salary. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're talking 60 grand a year.
Yeah,
You
60
take
grand a
sort
year, a few little outgoings on there, but that's enough if you structure it right. And again, this is why understanding business is important, understanding like tax laws and accountancy a little bit as well. Like, I mean, get an accountant to help you do it, obviously, but like you do that properly, you can pay yourself a good wage out of that, like 6,000 a year. You can still put money aside for a good pension. You can still have autonomy over your time, so you can be more flexible in the places you go to. And you probably don't have to work eventually once you've got those fundamentals in place. You don't have to do all the crazy hours to go and keep that. And most people generally are happy with that because that's all they want. They want to be able to afford a nice mortgage for the house.
yeah.
They want to go on holiday a few times a year. They want to support and spend time with their family and maybe not be completely stressed to the hilt thinking about work all the time and the business all the time. And they want to be able to create a pension so they can retire and not have to hustle all the way into their 80s. And I think if most people want that, I think that's what people should aim for, not these 10, 20, 30 grand a month or 10 grand a week stuff. It's just,
Like
it's
you say,
really an
it's setting
expectation.
unrealistic expectations for a lot of them. So actually,
Yeah.
when they do have when they are bringing in 6K, 7K a month,
Mhm.
it's almost failure.
Yeah.
And you're going, actually, how many people in the UK are earning 60 grand a year?
Yeah.
I mean, the average wage is what, 32? And you're sort
Something
of
like
going, you're earning double the national
that.
average. And yet, because some coach is telling you you need to be earning 10,
Mhm.
you're thinking you're not performing. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, there's a lot of gyms around that I
Mhm.
work with that don't take home 5K profit a month.
No, I know loads that don't. It's just, I
And
actually
you
didn't.
think of the overheads and stuff like that they're carrying
Yeah.
that an online coach isn't. And,
Mm.
and it's just amazing. But like I say, it's that mindset to go,
Mm.
actually, what do I need to do to live? What is my lifestyle? What do I want to be? No, I
Mm.
don't want to have a million followers and earning 100 grand a month. It doesn't really doesn't float my boat for all the damage that goes with it to my family, to my time, to everything else. And I think that's really important
Mm.
to people. Just out of interest, Ash, when you guys work with coaches,
Mhm.
sorry, with coaches,
Mhm.
and you're bringing them on board,
Mhm.
what's the biggest challenges that you guys face to sort of get them in the right place and get them to sort of go, okay, this is how we need to set this up.
The biggest thing by far is that switch between I'm a trainer to I'm a business owner. One by far the
Is it?
biggest issue because we have to try and get people to think because a lot of things we do, whether we do the done for you stuff, whether we're doing the course or whatever it is we have to get that shift because if you don't have that shift, it's going to be very difficult for you because all you're doing is you become the product that's being sold.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's all you are, and you can't be that anymore. Like you need to be
Absolutely,
thinking like a
absolutely, yeah.
business owner. So yeah, that's probably the biggest barrier and probably the hardest thing. And you'll always get people to go, "Yeah, I understand that," but then it's like, well, actually, when you have conversations, like we haven't quite got that yet. So a good example is, well, how do I maintain the standards then that I want for that one? Well, that's your SOPs and your systems and your training that you do
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it. So either you can do some yourself and you can do some like work on the business, or if you want to get it to a certain level, like say if you did need to take it to more of a turnover. So if you want to do things like maybe 20K a month or something like that, you are going to have to start bringing staff on. Like in reality, you're going to have to do that. So in which case then you're thinking I need to start paying people to go and do it. And it's like, how do I maintain doing that? Or how do I, if I'm going to do this one-to-one feel that's really important to me in my online programs, how do I scale that past this point where you need to bring in somebody then to come and help you? And it's the same kind of questions that come in. And it's just a way of thinking. It's also thinking about like, if I'm not working, as in I'm not training people, then I'm not making money. I was like, but you're doing other money generating tasks as well. And
Yeah.
that's the big thing that most people are so kind of attuned to the idea that you have to turn up, sell an hour of your time in order to get something back again. And when you're a business owner, you don't really look at it like that. You basically look about how can I best invest my time in the business to help me achieve the things that I want. And once you've made that shift, life becomes so much easier as an online coach. So yeah, that's probably the biggest hot or hardest thing we find sometimes to get people to make that shift between personal trainer to now an online
Yeah,
fitness
online
business
coach.
owner.
And do you think technology, the way it's going, is helping you guys from an online? Because I can imagine the amount of data now that you can
Mm.
grab from people's watches and so on
Mhm.
allows your
Mhm.
clients, your coaches to deliver
Oh
such
yeah.
a better service.
Yeah, technology has really changed everything when it comes to online training. It really gives you, it frees up your time. So the way I always look at things is you're always going to have a certain kind of curriculum we talked about earlier, a certain process people go through. And there's a lot of things within that that are very similar. And when things are similar, you can start using technology to help you. So it aids you do those particular things. It helps
Yeah,
you track data so you can make better decisions and quicker decisions. And that's what a lot of this is about. A lot of it trying to look at it saying, how can I do this more effectively, more efficiently? Efficiently being, how can I make as much money for the time I'm putting into that particular task? That's all efficiency is for business. It's how much profit can I make by the time that I put into something. And
yeah,
so that's what you're trying to do in technology allows you to increase that efficiency. So at the end of the day, it should increase your bottom line if you do it properly. You have to look at the numbers, obviously, but if you do it properly, it increases your bottom line. So I think that makes a big difference in terms of all the, especially the data that comes in. And then, yeah, from a coaching perspective, there's so much like with smartware, for example, like smart tech and wearable tech. Yeah, the data gets unreal, and it can really help with things like making sure people are staying accountable, and also making sure if you get good accountability, you see, then you get better retention. And in
yeah,
reality, money, the money in the fitness business, as you know, from is made in retention. The longer you retain somebody for, the more money you make because it's much cheaper to keep somebody than what it is to find a new client. So that's made a huge difference. The retention levels are increasing with technology. I think some people do get worried about it. I think especially with the likes of AI, people are worried about it a little bit in terms of how does that translate into online coaching. And this is kind of why I said earlier, you need to be an online coach, not an online trainer.
yeah, yeah,
So with AI already, you know, it can create programs instantly and it can adapt them based on the form, based on your data that you put into it. It can do nutrition plans, meal plans based on the data you put into it and adapt it to suit. And it can do that instantaneously. It can even answer questions for you instantaneously. And it's pulling it from a database, a huge database that's generally up to date. So if we compare that to a human, a normal PT, I always say to anybody, if you want to go and do an online program and your idea is to deliver workout programs to your client that you then adapt based on the data that they input into your app or whatever it is, and then same for the nutrition, that you give them some kind of nutrition protocol and you adapt it based on the information they put in, and then you just answer some questions for them, then you're going to struggle in the next 3, 4 years because already AI is doing that better than you could ever do it because it can do
yeah.
it quicker, instantaneously.
But
It can
it's
do
just
it a hell
got
of a lot
access to
cheaper.
so much more data, hasn't it? That's the thing. We're relying on what knowledge we've learned.
Yeah,
That doesn't even have to do that. It just pulls it from its knowledge banks.
yeah,
So
exactly.
much.
And because of that, it means it can do it cheaper. And the thing about that is that it means that the things like the workout programs that you deliver, the nutrition stuff that you deliver, that kind of thing, the value of that is actually not as much as you probably think it is. And again, that's a big thing as well. You said about getting people to think differently when they first come on. That's the barrier. It's very difficult for me to go as a to say to trainers, well, actually, the workout programs you do and the nutrition plans aren't really that viable because that information is already there. It's instantaneously accessible and it can now be accessed even quicker by AI and be adapted for those clients by AI. So you have to think about what the differences are going to be. And there's kind of, I think there's a split starting to come now. And there's definitely going to be a split where you're going to have online AI trainers and you're going to have online coaches. So the coaching side is where the difference is going to be. You have to start thinking about how you're going to coach clients, think about those niches, think about those curriculums, think about those nuances that that niche has when it comes to taking that information. And that's the key thing. And then also having that personal touch. At the end of the day, people are still going to want a human touch. They're still going to like the idea of, you're going to get people who want the AI stuff because it's cheaper, but they're also going to be people that want to have that proximity to you or your brand. So again,
But the
that's
great thing
also,
is as well, though, Ash, if they're clever, they sort of go, well, actually, AI is brilliant at what it does. I don't have to sit for hours writing someone's program base. I'm just going to throw the data into AI. AI is going to create the program. But now I can spend my time doing like you're talking about, doing the coaching element of it, making sure we're keeping them
yeah,
accountable, all those sorts of things. And then that becomes their core business in
mhm,
essence. And AI is now a tool
yeah.
just to speed up their reaction in terms of what needs to happen.
Exactly. And that's what people should be doing. I think anyone's thinking of going online, that's how they should be looking. Like use AI to help, and then you'll adapt it and adjust it based on the needs of your niche as well when you put it in, but then focus on the coaching elements of the online side of it and just let AI be that tool to help you do things within your business, just like you would for any other part of your business.
Like graphic designers, everyone thought graphic designers and all those related to doing ads and everything would disappear because of AI. Now they may do eventually, but those that are doing really well have taken AI and gone, actually, that's going to make my business better.
Hmm.
So whereas I could do X before, I can now do so much bigger range because I've got AI as a support. So rather than seeing it as a going to take their job, it's just adapting what you do.
Hmm.
And I think a good thing is it forces more people to have relationships.
Yeah.
Whereas before they probably could be very standoffish and very matter of fact, this is what it is.
Hmm.
Now they're having to build relationships because otherwise AI will take the job.
Yeah,
And I think that
exactly.
from that side of it, I think it's a really
Mm.
positive thing. It's a great tool. I mean, I use it a lot in
Mm.
what I do. And I mean, it's like I'm just as an example, I'm slightly dyslexic. So when I wrote my book, most of it was written over the last few years with various training and everything else. But I got AI to help me, one, to make sure my grammar was right.
Yeah,
Um,
I do that quite
and
a lot.
spelling and everything. I know it's spell checking that, but I also made it so it had the right flow of so it all sounded the same throughout the book. I mean, it's
Mhm.
300 pages. I could easily, I'm one of those, I'm creative, so it could go all over the place if I'm not careful.
Mm.
But it didn't write the book for me.
Mm.
It was still my ideas. It was still, most of it was still, but it allowed me to, I'd been thinking about writing a book for 3 years,
Mm.
4 years. But AI came out and suddenly, oh, I can get this done quickly,
Mhm.
efficiently. I've got everything there. Now I've got the tools to do it rather than having to sit for hours
Mm.
and work it out. And like I say, it's my information, but it's helped me out massively. And I think that's how trainers need to look at it as well.
Yeah,
Trainers and clubs
yeah.
take these tools and go, how are they going to benefit me to do my
Mhm.
job rather than I'm scared of them.
Yeah, you should never definitely be scared of them. They're all there to help and aid, and just pay attention. Like any kind of business should do, you have to pay attention to what's going on. Like you always need to have an ear to the ground about what's changing the markets and stuff. And AI shouldn't be something to be scared of. That there's always going to be the odd jobs I think that do get replaced. But I think overall, it's going to improve the quality. I think, especially from an online training perspective, it's going to improve the quality because unless you coach or unless you offer proximity or ideally both, so like the proximity to you, your brand, like you said there, yeah, that
Yeah.
personal touch and speaking to people and that kind of thing, then you're probably going to get pushed out in reality because you will get replaced. But that's on you. Like your business, like we said at the start of this, like what business gives you is the autonomy over everything and the decisions that you make. Like if you can't be bothered to coach and you can't bother to offer proximity to you or your brand, then that's on you whether AI replaces you or not. No one else. You can change this
No,
to suit.
it's like any business, isn't it? It doesn't even have to be coaching. If you go
Yeah.
open up a shop in a town, if you don't put the effort in and open when the clients want you to open, and all this was like restaurants. I mean, it's quite funny when you watch Gordon Ramsay and he goes and does his thing, and the restaurant's shut at lunchtime, and he's apoplectic. He's so what the hell are they doing? But it's the same. It's the same thing, isn't it? He's walking in there going, "How do you expect to get clients if you're closed?" And
Mhm.
and the same applies with online coach. If you're not prepared to put yourself out into the places that you need to
Mhm.
be, then you're unlikely to be successful.
Mhm.
So the only person usually, and it's not always the case, but usually when a business doesn't do well or isn't successful,
Mhm.
you can put it straight back down on the owner. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much. I
60,
mean,
70% of the time, there are outside factors sometimes, but
mm,
quite often you have a look at what the owner's been
mm,
doing and how he's been interacting, whether that be with the staff, whether that
mhm.
be with the clients, whatever. You suddenly go, there's your problem. You're the problem. You need to sort
Yeah.
yourself out, and then the business is a
Uh,
success.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things that any kind of business owner needs to be. And again, kind of we talked about earlier, making that shift between PT and business owner. Like you've got to take full ownership because that's what it is. You're an owner, like full ownership and accountability for everything, even things that the actions that you don't do or the things that other people are doing that might affect your business. You still have to take ownership over it. Now, ownership's not taking like blame for anything. You're just taking responsibility to handle the situation. And again, it comes back to understanding what you're in business for. So let's say, for example, like there was loads of external factors that went off, and you're like, okay, this, and this happened. Like, the business is not going to make it through this. So it's your job as a business owner to pay attention to those things, look at what's happening, and go, what do I need to do? So do I wind this up and do something different? Do I adapt the business to go and offer something else? Do I change something that I'm doing? Do I get rid of staff? Do I do whatever? That's your job as a business owner to do that and adapt it to suit. And I think it's easier to do when you understand that your business is a tool for your life
Yeah,
because then it doesn't become your, which I think a lot of people do. My business is my baby. I was like, I know it's bloody not your baby. It's just like because if it was your kid, you'd always do everything you can in order to like you'd literally
yeah,
die
yeah,
for your
exactly.
children. Like I wouldn't die for my bloody business. I'd sell it tomorrow if someone gave me enough money for it. Like it's like
Absolutely, it is true though, isn't it?
Mm,
It's. I mean, I've worked with a couple of businesses where we've had to close them down, and it's
mm,
getting that realization that you sort of, I appreciate
mhm,
what you put into this and everything else, but it
mhm.
is just a business,
Yeah.
and what you do, you close this down and you go on to something else, and
Mm,
that might be 100 times more successful,
mhm.
but it's not your life. Your
No.
life is vastly different. Now, I've had you on for quite a while, Ash,
Oh yeah.
so we're coming towards the end, but um, there's some great nuggets in there. In terms of, I always ask the guests, is there any three things? So if you were to pick three things, someone's a personal trainer really wants to look at the online aspect of it. Is there three things, two or three things that they could look at to sort of go, okay, this is where we start?
Yeah. I think first thing is make that shift. Like start realizing you're going to approach this as a business owner, not as an online trainer. Like you're offering online training as a service. That's going to make things easier. The second thing would be to start thinking about what your end goal is. That's the place to start. Like, what do you actually want from this? And then once
Yeah,
you understand what you want from this, then base your targets on that. So say, right, I need this much money and this much time in order to achieve these things in my life. And then once you've done that, you can then start thinking about how am I going to get those targets? So what systems do I need in place to go and do that? Like I need ways to make leads, I need ways to make sales, I need to take that cash, I need to deliver my services. Just keep it nice and simple to start off with the different kind of systems. And then once you've kind of got those systems and ideas, think, okay, what's my day-to-day life need to be in order to go and support that? Because at the end of the day, like the success is based on the sum of all the habits that we have.
yeah.
So you have to put those habits in place and think about what do I need to do each day to show up for my business in order to achieve the things that I want. That will be the next thing I
And
would do.
and I guess because I always say this to people as well. So when because I've done quite a few pre-sales for gyms and stuff like that, and quite often when I get called in, and I'll do pre-sales, but I get called in when the business is in the shit.
Mm.
Is usually Ryan. I need more sales. I need more money. I need more. We're losing cash, and fair enough. I'll come and help. But I say to people, if they're ever going to pay for advice,
Mhm.
you do it at the start
Yeah.
because you get all the systems right, you learn, you understand, and that's the time that you're new to business as well. You're super excited, you soak things up massively, and it's also a really stressful time. So if you don't know what you're doing,
Mhm.
you spend so much time trying to learn how to do it that actually miss out on all the things that you should have been doing.
Mhm.
So I would say if there's anybody that wants to go online, is to get in touch. And this isn't to sell your business. Obviously, I'd like you to get
Yeah,
some
it's always
more,
nice.
but it's not about that. It's about people understanding that don't be afraid to seek that advice from the start because
Mm.
especially something like you're saying that transition from gym floor to online,
Mm.
they're very separate businesses.
Mm.
Although fundamentally the business is similar, you're
Yeah.
giving people advice on how to get fit or whatever their goal is. They are fundamentally massively different businesses.
Mhm.
So if you think you're just going to stroll into
Yeah.
online and it's going to work, it's not. So it makes sense to go. Actually, let's go speak to Ash, find out what I need to do, get all those systems in place, and then your learning jumps by
Mhm.
6 months, 12 months,
Yeah.
and now they're in a much better place to deliver it. So that's what I would say if anybody's watching this and thinking of doing it, is to reach out to people like yourself to
Mm.
take them the right way and avoid anyone who tells you that they're going to earn you 10k in 10k a week.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
may
like
get there.
there's points where you can grow your business too. Like you get different mentors and things down the line. I completely get that. But yeah, like we focus on that beginning bit. Like we want to
Yeah.
help people get online and build a sustainable long-term business that's going to give you the things that you want. That's literally what we focus on. And like I said, if anyone's interested, just come and look on my social profiles. There's so much free stuff on there. Like we have loads of free things we give away all the time, resources. Like I have no
Well,
issue
you and David do a
sharing my
really good
secrets.
podcast.
Yeah,
I
every
really
week.
enjoy that. Some great stuff on that
Mm,
one, and obviously you do your own stuff as well.
mm,
And I'll put all your links at the end and the beginning of the podcast so people can just have a click and have a look.
mm.
But I really appreciate your time, as that has
No
absolutely
worries.
flown by. I think it's a fascinating subject. I mean,
Mm.
obviously, when I was a PT, the internet probably wasn't even around. Well, it was, but not
Maybe.
quite. It was a lot. It was a lot. Online certainly wasn't a thing, and I
Yeah.
think it's a fascinating movement to
Mm,
where it's going. And I think online is opening us up because, as we know, only 50% of the population are members of gyms,
mhm,
and a lot of that is because they're intimidated. They don't want to go.
mm,
It's not a place for them, and I fully understand that. But I think online coaching allows those people
mm,
to get that service
mhm,
and still do it at home or do it wherever they feel comfortable. They can still do it in the gym, obviously,
mm.
but a lot of I think it just brings more people to the market. So I think it's a great progression for the industry.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's just going to open up so many more opportunities for our customers, potential clients, but also for trainers and coaches around. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Especially at the minute, a lot of PTs have they only last about 9 months to a year, don't they? And then they end up
Yeah, the
going
attrition
doing
rate
some
in the
other
industry
career.
is shocking. It's like 90% or something like that.
Yeah,
It's awful.
but like I say, that's because we throw them in as freelance PTs from the
Yeah.
outset. And I think they've never worked on a gym floor.
No.
They don't understand a gym necessarily, other than the weight side of it.
Mm.
And we expect them suddenly to be successful in a gym paying £600 a month rent.
Yeah.
It's
Ridiculous.
absolutely bonkers. But that's a different subject. Ash.
Yeah.
Really appreciate your time this morning. Like I say, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, just click on the links that are attached, and we'll definitely get you on again, Ash. It's but good luck with it all. And if
Thank you.
and we'll get you on again soon. And thanks for that.
Awesome. Cheers, Ryan. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.